Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Cinema Recall podcast. I am the Vern. I hope you all had an amazing Christmas weekend. We are back somewhat. My wonderful, beautiful co-host Ashley could not join on this episode because she is working and she's not able to help me out with this episode. Plus, I don't think so. She's a big fan of this movie, and I know that if I had her watch it, she would not want to be friends with me anymore. So instead, I brought along with me a great gentleman, first timer on the podcast here, and I'm grateful he's here. We have Doug from the Good Times Great Movies podcast. Hello, Doug.
Hi, Vern. Thank you for having me. I'm a little bummed out that your co-host isn't a fan of what I believe, and I'm not joking here. I believe this is a feminist piece of film, so it's a shame that it's just us two dudes talking about this.
It is a shame, and I'll preface this by saying I don't think she's ever seen this movie before. All right, it's something that I will have.
Right, but you know her better than I do, so you probably have a better idea of whether she would like it than I would.
I just know from her taste in movies, she would be like, "This movie's boring. There's nothing happens to this. Okay. Oh my god, this stuff's ridiculous." So, but she also does have an open mind of things too. So it has to be a movie. If we shout out to the Parkway Theater, where we've done trivia for that place, if they ever wants to host Eyes Wide Shut there, she'll watch it. And I think that's the best way to watch it is in the theater. But yeah, the movie that we are talking about, folks, because you clicked on the link, is Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. I'm holding the Blu-ray right here. We are trying to get into that. If you are watching or listening to us at Cinema Recall, thank you very much. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, such as Podchaser and Spotify, Goodpods. We have episodes out on YouTube. Everywhere you can find podcasts. Thank you very much. You can get episodes early on our Patreon page. Again, patreon.com/cinemaricallpod. We're also available on Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio app for your iOS and Android phone. It picks up the most trending articles on the web and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable. Stop scrolling, start listening. Go to newsly.me, use the promo code RECALL, and get 1 month free of their premium service. Also, every Sunday, we are on fullswapradio.com during their Vanilla Sundays. Full Swap Radio is a kink and fetish podcast network, and we are on their Vanilla Sunday programs at 8:30 p.m., so be sure to check us out there. Doug, tell everyone out there all about Good Times, Great Movies podcast. You are the host. When did you get started with this whole ordeal, man?
Well, my co-host and I started way back in 2015. The podcast was my idea, but basically what the podcast was her idea. I said, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" And she said, "Sure." We had no idea what to talk about. We knew we wanted it to be movie related. She pitched a bunch of stuff. We landed on 80s movies. We do not leave that decade at all. Nice. Our show comes out once. It comes out every other Friday, and we have not missed a Friday since we started the show. We're kind of proud of that, but I mean, 2 shows a month, we can handle that. So it's an 80s movie podcast. We cover everything. We cover good movies. We cover terrible movies. We kind of have fun with them. We kick them around a bit, take the piss out of some of them, whether they deserve it or not, whether we like the movies or not. And it's an absolute blast. We're in the middle of a very poor decision, which is to cover all Bo Derek 80s movies in December. It is a disaster. Like, one is worse than the next. I can't even believe it.
But it's got to be for some fun conversations, so that's got to be really cool.
Yeah, and that's the shame of it, is if we cover movies that we enjoy, we find that that's kind of a tougher conversation. It's not as enjoyable. It's just us going, "Oh yeah, this was good. Yeah, that person had a great performance." So these god awful movies that her sicko creep of a husband directed make for good conversation. Not a good watch though.
Was her husband Blake Edwards?
No, her husband was John Derek.
John Derek. Okay,
yeah,
my bad. Okay, that's right. Blake Edwards dated Julie Andrews type.
Yep. Yeah. And he married her when she was like 16, and they had to move to Germany to do it. The background of those two is wild.
That is insane.
Yeah. Yep.
I will ask you this, though. Through the course of doing this podcast, has there been a movie that you enjoyed when you're younger, but then looking at again, you're like, I don't like it as much? And is there a movie that you didn't like as much when you were younger, but then we watch it again, you're like, hey, that's actually a good flick?
There's a bunch of examples of both of those. I'm going to say a movie I really liked as a kid, and I had the hardest time even getting through it, was Tron. Tron as a kid, I found it fascinating. And now the visuals did not work, of course. And I hate to say things don't hold up, but when your whole gimmick is visuals, and it did not age well, the plot is slow and meandering, it really didn't hold up for me. And a movie that I wasn't crazy about as a kid, I think I was just too young for it. Cat People is phenomenal. Like Cat People, watching it now, I appreciate it so much more than when I was a kid and stumbled upon this weird film.
I think I just watched Cat People for the first time this year. Yeah. Never seen it before. I've seen the original 1940s version first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I watched this new version with Natasha Kinski. And I remember the movie mainly because David Bowie's song, Put Out the Fire, was used in Inglourious Bastards. And it's the main theme song for Cat People. And I didn't realize that watching it. But, that's where he got the song from. Well, that's really kind of cool. But yeah, it's a trip. Tron, I still love when I first watched it. Still love it today. And yes, the visuals are not as strong. I try to look at it. It's like a 1930s movie being made with computers. Like they took 1930s style actors in action and put computer generated images on top of them. Someone found an old movie and did that.
Yeah, I could see that. And again, I have nothing against old movies. I watch more movies in the 1940s in a month than most people do over their entire lifetime. So I have no issue with that. But I just found the plot paper thin now when I was trying to watch it. So, yeah.
That is true. That is commendable. Well, be sure, everyone, to check out all the great episodes of Good Times, Great Movies on their website, goodtimesgreatmovies.com. I will post links in our show notes about where you can find all their great episodes. So thank you again, Doug, for being here. Now we got to get to a section which I am dubbing Rage Corner. Rage Corner. Rage Corner, brought to you by the guys from the Film Rage podcast. This is the section of the show where we rage happily or rage madly about things going on in the entertainment industry. And since you are our guest, I'll ask if you want to go first.
I do find the idea of raging happily kind of hilarious. Let
me have your
rages. I understand that. My rage, this is so lame. I'll go first.
There's never a lame rage. Be proud of your rage.
It's pretty lame because I am a man in my mid-40s. I should not be as upset that they're making a Mean Girls remake as I am. It's the dumbest thing for me to be upset about, but it seems totally unnecessary. It seems like a cash grab, and I don't quite know what they're trying to cash in on other than mothers maybe taking their teenage daughters to see this, I guess. And I know nothing more than the preview that I've seen, but I don't see any significant difference. I mean, it seems like a straight up remake.
Oh, it is a straight up remake, but this version that's being released to theaters is a musical. They're adapting the musical stage play of Mean Girls to the screen.
I saw no music in the preview that I saw. Maybe I just saw a lame ass preview, but it seemed
they legitimately cut they are legitimately cutting out the musical portions in the advertisement of this. They do not want you to know it's a musical. Wow. It's the same thing with Wonka. They don't want you to know Wonka is a musical. They don't want you to know that Mean Girls is a musical. Even The Color Purple.
All right. Okay. Okay. It seems crazy, first of all, that they would want to eliminate the musical aspect of it, because I would think that would probably, I think, be a draw. I mean, the musical did well, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did pretty well. Yeah,
and I just don't. I could see some people who might be interested in this being turned off, going, "Well, wait, we could just watch the original." If you sell this as it is a musical adaptation, I think that's a better way to sell it. I'm not going to see it either way, but I would think that would be a smart move rather than saying, "Here's this old movie, and we're just going to redo it with younger actors." And for some reason, Tina Fey is still hanging around, I guess because her name's attached to this thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw the trailers for this. I'm thinking, they could have just re-released the original movie and put that back out in theaters. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Save the studios a whole bunch of money. It's amazing.
Do it.
Oh, all right. I understand that rage. I'm a huge fan of the Heathers musical.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see it live. I still do not want that to be adapted into screen. There's certain things on stage that should just stay on stage. There's like an Evil Dead musical. I do not want Evil Dead musical to come to the big screen. No, I want to go to the theater and be sprayed with blood at the theater. I'm not going to get that in the movies with Evil Dead the musical. So some things should just stay on the stage, not on the screen.
There's a part of me that would kind of want to see an adaptation of that musical, only because we've seen so many franchises have so many. Of course, if they have some hits and then they also have some misses, everything Evil Dead with that name attached has been pretty great, and I'd kind of love to see them ruin it with a musical adaptation.
I know, right? I will say one cool thing about stage adaptations. I did see in theaters the live stage adaptation of Spirited Away.
Okay.
And that was astounding. That was actually really cool, the way that you set. Plus, all the actors speak Japanese, and I cannot speak Japanese. I do not know the language. So seeing it in theaters with the subtitles really helped out a big deal, and it was a great thing to watch. So yeah, do that for movies. That's great. But other than else, I'll wait for it on stage. But yeah, that is a great rage. My rage is a happy rage, and it's a happy rage that I wanted to share on past episodes, but I never remembered to or had a chance to. So I'm going to do it right now. My happy rage is... Oh, you went away. You gotta hear my rage. My happy rage this week... You're good? My happy rage this week is Godzilla -1.
I have heard nothing but great things. I am not a Godzilla aficionado. I saw the this is how out of the Godzilla loop I am. I saw the original Japanese, the original Godzilla.
Saw that, yep.
And I saw the terrible, I think it's terrible, one with Matthew Broderick. Those are the only two Godzilla movies I've ever seen in my life.
That's fair. I saw the Matthew Broderick. That was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw.
Okay.
Godzilla, Matthew Broderick. And then I saw the Japanese version, 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Destroy All Monsters, which is like a combination of like Godzilla and Gamera and all the other monsters. That was cool. And then I saw this. You do not need to know anything about Godzilla, and you will enjoy this movie.
Okay.
This is essentially the Japanese blockbuster version of Jaws. All right. It is emotional. The characters you are really indulged with and engulfed with. It's got great stories of heroism. It's dramatic. It's funny. It's scary. And it's the first time in a long time where Godzilla is actually scary himself.
Okay.
The action sequences are amazing. I hope studios watch this movie because this is how a blockbuster movie should be done. It's just absolutely astounding. And it was made for only $15 million, so like a very minuscule budget for a picture, and it just grossed over $60 million so far.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's incredible. Like I said, I've heard really good things. I'll probably take the time then to check it out at some point, because I didn't do whatever the past couple, U.S. versions or whatever. I totally skipped those. I heard some good things. I heard some negative things. It wasn't enough to get me on board. But honestly, I haven't heard a bad thing about this film.
And I like the fact that they showed Godzilla throughout the whole thing. Within the first 5 minutes, you see Godzilla. And the one that came out in 2011 from Gareth Edwards, I think, that one tried to make Godzilla mysterious and didn't show much of him. And it was all right. But this one, you see Godzilla and all its glories right there. So that is great.
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds amazing.
I'm forgetting something, Doug. I'm forgetting something. I always do this. Whenever I forget stuff, I have to mention about Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a new productivity shot, which you can get right here. It's supposed to boost energy and focus, crush procrastination, and elevate mental clarity. Go to magicmind.com/cinema recall. Use the promo code cinema recall 20 and get 56% off your first purchase in the first 10 days. So go there. Our links will be in the description. Magicmind.com. There we go. Got that shit all of the way.
Very cool.
Now, for our podcast listeners, you are going to be hearing an ad spot from an amazing podcast show that you should definitely check out. And we will be right back to talk about Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, because it's Christmas and it's a Christmas movie. Don't care whatever you say. We'll be right back.
Hey, since you're going to cut right now, can I run real quick? I had a drink and everything down the base. I'm just going to run down, get it. I'll be right back. Okay.
Cool, man.
All right. Okay.
All right. Since I don't cut anything here for our YouTube listeners or watchers, you're going to see my face on screen for just a few seconds while he's getting a drink. Be sure to check out our Clue audio drama adaptation over on the Patreon page that we made for Rabbit Hole Podcast. Check that out. I'm also going to be posting a written review on another movie coming out soon, which I don't have the disc here for, which I probably should have grabbed, but I did. Over on our website, cinemarecall.net, I will be giving you a written review of The Terror and the original Little Shop of Horrors. Not the musical, but the... I gotta say, our guest here has a very cool looking basement area. It's looking kind of a cool thing. He's got stuff displays here. I've got nothing behind me. I look like I'm in a psych ward. I've got just a TV behind me. If I turn the camera, you'll probably see padded walls and doors with bars on them. So I think he's coming back now. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right. You got your drink in hand.
I'm all good.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Cinema Recall. Like I said before, if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't cut anything on the YouTube channel. I just play everything out the way it is, the way that we record podcasts. You can see the magic and the joy of
let's call it magic, right?
Magic. I love it. But yes, today we are discussing Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. I'm holding the Blu-ray right here in my hand. It was based on the story and book Traumaville by Arthur Schnitzler, starring Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Sidney Pollack, Alan Cumming, Lily Sobieski, whole bunch of other great actors. I'm going to ask you, Doug, when did you first see Eyes Wide Shut?
I first saw this. I don't have very many interesting stories for when I first saw movies, and maybe this one isn't that interesting, but I saw it in a very odd way in that I was dating a girl at the time that this was, I guess, certainly out of the theaters, and her family rented this for family movie night, everyone. And they say And their daughter's like, well, all right, you're here. Let's all go upstairs and sit down as one big happy family and watch this. And
was this during Christmas time? Did you watch this during Christmas?
it was during Christmas time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so incredible. And we watched the whole movie. Everyone hated it. And I'm a guest. I'm dating their daughter. I'm not going to speak up. But the moment it ended, in my head, I'm like, that was amazing. That was incredible. I want to watch it again immediately, but didn't say that and had to listen to these people complain about it for like an hour.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, well, for me, I saw this movie in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Because
great.
Prior to this, now, back in the day, I never connected filmmakers with movies, but I have seen The Shining and Full Metal Jacket a whole bunch of times, but I never connected those movies with Stanley Kubrick for a while. And I remember one year I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey for the first time, but I watched it on a small 13-inch TV. Now, it was the letterbox version of the movie, so I got to see it in the scope it was, but it was still on a 13-inch TV. But that movie just really impressed me. Even on that small screen, I was just totally taken by the visuals and the story of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So when I saw that Eyes Wide Shut is coming out in 99, because I've just been out of high school for a few years, I knew about Stanley Kubrick's name. I'm thinking, oh, well, I love 2001. I love The Shining. I love Full Metal Jacket. Still have not seen Barry Lyndon at the time. I did see Dr. Strangelove, too, so I caught most of his features. And I went with a few friends to the theaters, and we got to see it at a Cineplex where it was just one screen for that whole entire theater. It wasn't a multiplex where there's a bunch of different movie theaters. It was just one theater screen, and it was shown almost like in the theater at the time, looked like this Gothic cathedral type of place.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was a great visual experience. But I will admit, the first time that I watched it, I wasn't too much into the movie. I was confused by it, but yet there was something about many scenes in the movie that I did like. And I tend to look at movies like I do rock albums, where I like tracks of a certain album, but I may not like the whole album until later on throughout the years. And it wasn't until many years later when I did give it a rewatch. And it's a movie that I watched all the time, because in 1999 and the 2000s, we had a slew of movies that I didn't quite understand, but I enjoyed them. Movies like Magnolia and Donnie Darko, Mulholland Drive, all of these great movies where I may not understand a lot about the plot and what's going on, but they made such an emotional feelings in me that it made me want to rewatch them over and over again. And Eyes Wide Shut is a movie that I keep coming back to all the time. It's a movie that I find new things about it while watching it, and I enjoy it very much. The basic plot description of Eyes Wide Shut, and we're not going to go through a whole scene by scene breakdown because we'll be here too long for that. But we have Dr. Bill Hartford, played by Tom Cruise, and his wife. They go to a Christmas party, and she is dancing with this Hungarian guy, and he's walking around. He talks to two models that he's really attracted to, and they're attracted to him, but he's going to go off with them. He just called in to Sidney Pollock's office, and there's a woman who's naked and obviously overdosed. They're both there at the party, but they're doing separate things at the party. And then one night, she confesses, while they're getting high and being alone together, she confesses about a fantasy she had about I want to say he's a Navy officer.
Yeah, I think he is a naval officer. Yeah.
Naval officer, they're at a vacation, and she sees this naval officer, and she had this fantasy where she's like, if he wanted me for one night, I'll be willing to give up everything. You, our kid, everything. And that upsets Bill, and it sets him off in this path where he's trying to have the same type of sexual adventures, and things go awry from there. I don't know if I'm describing that. I'm just trying to give you the basic plot line without giving any spoilers away here, folks.
Yeah. If people haven't seen it, imagine that simplified plot like expanded into nearly 3 hours of a movie.
And I watched a video analysis from Jess Flix, and I'll post the link in our show description because she perfectly described this as a Christmas movie, and she says it's basically like It's a Wonderful Life, but with sex orgies and things going on in there. Oh,
yeah. I think, I mean, listen, you could analyze this film to death, and if you go online, you can see people have already done that. And I think, I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned, the film to me is relatively simple. Mm-hmm. It's basically that Bill can't handle the fact that his wife is a sexual being. You know what I mean? Like he can't deal with it. She only thought about these things, and then he has to go out and try and seek out these actual experiences to try and sort of just get back at her for describing a fantasy to him. I mean, it's not even like she said, we did this or anything like that. She's literally like, they sit down or they're making out, they're getting hot and heavy and everything. And she just describes a fantasy that she had. And maybe she takes it a bit too far. I understand that. But he cannot deal with this. Like, he literally even says, no, women don't do this. Like, women don't think about this. This is not how women are. That's how men are. And he has such a hard time dealing with it.
She has that great line when they're in the room together, which is by far my favorite sequence in the movie, where she says, men have to stick it in everywhere they can, but for women's about security and emotions and whatever the fuck else.
Yeah.
And he says, simplified Alice, and she's like, if you men only knew. Because, I think as men, we like to think that when we're with someone, that we're their all-be-all men, we're the object of their affections and everything. But women can have fantasies about other people, just like men have fantasies about other women too. And I think the story ultimately is about these two characters expressing their sexual fantasies and realizing that they like the normalcy of their marriage. And it's about two people growing and connecting to each other through their different adventures, whether it be reality or fantasy.
Because the normalcy of their marriage, that's the one thing that they can both agree on. And actually, that's the one thing that very early on, like she even says to him, like, when she asks him about, anyway, when they're having that conversation, he says, no, I would never do that to you because we're married. Not because I love you, not because we have something more. It's marriage. And even as you said early, she's dancing with that Hungarian guy and he's like, hey, let's get down to it. Like, what's stopping you? And the only reason she basically holds up her hand and shows the ring, it's not about a connection they have. It's not about the passion they have for each other. No, they're just married. And I think that's the important thing about this film, because for long stretches, it's just the mundane existence of two people that are married, like her just hanging around the house with this kid, him just going to his job. They're not connecting on a passionate level. And I think this movie is really trying to point out, like, okay, well, I guess passion is over here and a committed relationship is over here. And when she tries to pull those two together, he flips out, and then the movie gets started.
Yeah. Now, do you think, and I'm going to ask you about the title of this movie, Eyes Wide Shut. I always thought, this is just my brain thinking about this. I always thought about Eyes Wide Shut is Bill may be open to a lot of new experiences, but it's shut about what's really the love that is right in front of him. And that's how I kind of interpreted that title of like being open to things, but it's not having your mind closed. Like he's hearing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I would say he's hearing her story about this, and his mind races through like jealousies and things that he wants to do. But his mind is shut off that it's just a fantasy story. She's married to you. She has a kid with you. She's still with you. These stories that she tells, it's just a story. You know, it doesn't really mean anything. I don't know why your mind is shut off to that too much. So.
Yeah. I think I view it the same way, much the same way you are, where for the great majority of this film, their eyes are wide shut, whatever we want to say that is. And at the end, I think that the end scene in the toy store is so impactful, and it's so great because at that point, and she basically says as much, like their eyes are now wide open. They've now had these conversations. They've been through an entire, I guess, courtship and marriage without expressing these sexual fantasies. And she came right out and told him. He went out and tried to do stuff. Then he later confessed to her. And at the end of this, she's like, okay, we now know everything. Like we're now dealing with the fact that we know more about each other than we did a few days ago. So now let's see if this relationship can continue working with all we know now. Can we take these two things that felt so separate and now put them together to continue our marriage?
Yeah, that is very true about that. I'm sure you heard this before, that this movie was inspired by Tromneville, which is a older movie, it's older book. It was written by Arthur Schnitzler, and his book Tromneville is basically called Dream Story. And this was actually made into a movie in like the late 60s, early 70s. And really quickly, it's a doctor in Vienna becomes jealously tormented when he realizes that his wife, whom is taken too much for granted, has a secret life. Called out in the middle of an argument, he finds himself in a journey to the end of the night, navigating his way through a series of hazards. Follows a lot of the same. He visits a grieving woman who lost her husband. But the musician that he meets in Tromneville, he basically just invites him out to the party.
Okay.
And An Eyes Wide Shut, Nick Nightingale, played by Todd Fields, Academy Award director Todd Fields, is a little bit hesitant about that. I think An Eyes Wide Shut, and knowing that the story of the original is called Dream Story, is kind of a fascinating thing, because while watching it, everything does take place in the reality, but it's a very different type of reality. Kubrick shot this on a soundstage, and it looks like New York, but it's not really New York.
Right. Yeah, it looks like New York by way of like London back alleys, kind of.
Yes.
I find it, first of all, it's a gorgeous movie. Like I want to celebrate the holidays in this town. And I'm sure it was a set, but if I could have one bucket list item, I want to go to that bar where he watches his friend play piano. I just want to hang out in that environment.
That's the Nana Cafe. Yeah. That would be great. If they made an event where you could relive the life that he had,
complete with the orgies, of course.
Yes, of course. I would go to the house and watch mass people having sex.
Yep, be great.
But when watching this, and he's in that town, he's going to town, and he meets up with those drunken frat guys, and he meets up with the prostitute. I think her name is that Naomi? The first one. I forget the name of the first.
No, she. Oh boy, I can't think of her name. Sorry.
No, sorry.
I should have IMDb pulled up. I do it every time, but of course this time I didn't.
And usually I know I can just kind of pull this up while we're talking. But her appearing, that almost feels like a dream scenario. And it wasn't until many watches doing this where it felt like, I know he's going through this experience, but I think his version of it is dreamier than the actual reality of it.
Yeah.
And I think after he has all the experiences at night and then he goes back and sees it during the day, I think the day portion is real and the night portions aren't as so much. Just the way that it's filmed.
Yeah, a lot of people bring that up. Is any of this stuff actually happening at night? And I don't know, but every encounter he has feels like a fantasy. Feels like one of his fantasies, or him trying to chase his wife's fantasies, but at every turn, him kind of going, no, but I would not have sex with this prostitute. No, I wouldn't throw it all away. I am better than Nicole Kidman in this regard. And then, so let's move on to the next adventure. And he's Lily Sobieski, and I'll take the high ground with this too. Like, it seems so strange, but you're right. Then in the light of day, all these interactions that he has, whether it is with Sidney Pollack or whether it is back at the costume shop, they feel so mundane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The actor that played Domino,
that's what it is.
That was her name, Vanessa Shaw.
Okay.
And I like the sequence. It's so I can tell that Bill Hartford didn't have a lot of like sets growing up, and I think his marriage to Nicole Kidman, and he's thinking, oh, this girl has not been around many other men. He's thinking, I'm her first guy, all right? I'm the love of her life.
Yeah.
And hearing the story puts a stake into his heart going, wait, there's other men? You actually liked other men? And in his mind, he's thinking, I have not had many experiences that my wife has. And I think him going out in the night and trying to do so is him trying to match what his wife told him. And I like the sequence when he's with Domino and she's like, so should we get going? And he has the line, what do you recommend? I'm like, what do you mean, what do you recommend? We're here sets. And he gets thrown off when they're in the room together. They're about ready to kiss. He gets a phone call from his wife.
Right.
And he's there like, yeah, I should go.
It's even, the line's even better because she says, do you have to go? And he just sits there and goes, do I have to go?
Yeah.
He is unsure. And everything about that seems so convenient. Like later on with the roommate being like, oh, yeah, she's HIV positive. Like it just seems so convenient. Like, oh, boy, I really dodged a bullet there. It feels so manufactured, some of these interactions.
Yeah. Now, we should get into the big meat and potatoes of this movie, and we have to talk about the party that he goes to. Earlier in the film, I mentioned Bill Hartford meets an old friend who dropped out of medical school, this Nathan Dale, played by Todd Fields, and at the party, Nathan Dale says, I'll be at this night cafe, come by, stop by, have a drink. So Bill stops by there. Beautiful jazz bar. I totally agree with you, Doug.
Yeah.
I would love to have this in my hometown. It'd be great. But he has a drink with him, and he talks about playing blindfold at parties. And he says a blindfold wasn't on 10 all the time, and he saw all these beautiful women, and he's going to be going there. And Bill says, all you got to do is just give me the password, tell me where it is. No one has to know that you know me. I'll be wearing a mask. It's like, where are you going to get a mask at this time of night? So he goes to a costume shop that used to be run by a friend of his and now run by, I had his name on here, Mr. Milich, who owns Rainbow Fashions. He's there. Bill says, I'll pay you $200 over the price of the suit. and he's trying to sell them the suit, and then they hear a noise coming through the back room.
Right.
And he goes to the back room, sees two Japanese businessmen naked with his daughter. His daughter, played by Lily Sobieski, who, in my mind, looks like she's about 16 years old, or maybe younger.
If that. I mean, I don't know. She doesn't look like she's old enough to drive to me. So
yeah. So they get mad, and his daughter is holding on to Bill, half naked, and the owners are yelling at everyone, locking the two businessmen up in the room, saying, "Hold on, folks, I will call the police. You'll have to stay here. I'll deal with you, you little whore." And she whispers something into his ear, which we don't actually hear what that is. I don't know if she's saying something important, something dream, but it kind of shakes Bill for a little bit. And I always imagine to say, "This is all just a game." That's what I hear her say. Like, this is all just a game.
So sort of spilling the beans to him. I mean, I don't know. It's such like this is one of those points in the film where I'm not really sure how much of this is in his imagination. Does he get a costume? Does he go to this thing? I guess like I'm willing to buy it, but how much of this is actually happening, or how intense is this situation in reality if it is even happening? Like, just the idea of two random Japanese businessmen in the back room of the shop that you own and you don't know about it. It's a little bit too strange.
It's a very weird, creepy moment, and it's even a little bit more weird. And I when people watch or listen to this episode, I really hope you have seen Eyes Wide Shut.
Sure.
Because, I mean, trust me, you need to watch this movie and experience it. But when he goes back to the costume shop and he's returned the costume and his daughter shows up and Mr. Million says, if you need anything at all, it needn't be a costume.
Yeah.
And he's holding her, and he's like, Bill's like, well, hold on here. Those two men, you were going to have them arrested.
Right.
And he's like, we came to another arrangement.
Yeah.
And like,
we came to another arrangement. What you saw, that was just a misunderstanding. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, they forget about it, though. And I think that has to say, too, how we shut our eyes to certain horrors going on, because I know Bill knows that this young girl is being, prostituted out, probably not out of her own will. And hey, we support sex workers and everything like that there to allow them to have their own choice of, being in the lifestyle. But it doesn't seem like she is. And I was watching some analysis video saying that that young girl is just a prostitute they hired to be with those businessmen. Like, the businessman fantasy is to get caught and locked in this room.
Okay.
And Mr. Milnich hired that girl to play his daughter to do that.
Okay.
And the whole thing is just kind of the whole thing is made up. That's why in my head, when she whispers to the doctor, and this may not be what she actually whispers, in the Tromneville movie, she says to the line, take the cloak, or take my cloak. That's what she says in that version. But when I see things in my head is it's all just a game. And maybe this has to go with like how I view the movie and how maybe my eyes are wide shut to certain things that are going on in the story. Maybe I'm not seeing things clearly as they should be.
But to say, I like the idea of this is just a game. None of this is real. Like, everyone is just basically playing out their own fantasies. He goes to that sex club or crazy rich person orgy, and it appears that this woman has sacrificed herself for him. Are they really going to kill her? I don't think so. Like, this is just them playing out their own silly fantasies and him playing out his fantasy or his imagining of what's actually happening here, where it's all just for play. Like, none of it is, it's all real, surface level, but there's nothing underneath any of this.
But we do get the sequence when he goes to the house, shows up in a cab.
I do love that at the end when Sidney Pollack's like, dude, come on, you came in a cab. Like, how are we not going to know that, or how are we not going to think someone's here who's not supposed to be? It's like, everybody else comes in a limo, you came in a cab.
Not only that, too, but they found his rental receipt
right, yes.
in the coat pocket that had his name on there.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. He's so bad at this, and that's also what's hilarious.
He's crashing this party that is not for him. You know, he's not invited to this thing.
Right.
He's at that one place where all the women get naked and everyone's wearing masks. And hey, look, I love a good-looking naked body. Don't get me wrong. That's great. But I am not going to partake in an orgy if I can't see someone's face. I don't know. I'm amazed.
I don't know. Those are standards.
Have you been to those before?
I don't know, but man, your standards are way too high. I don't know. I'm just saying, if I'm in this situation, listen. If the rules are wear a mask, okay, fine, fantastic.
But I want different types of masks. All right, I don't want that same type of style of mask. Yeah. I want a different style of mask. It's just weird. If I'm gonna have. In order for me to have any sexual connection with someone there, I gotta see someone's face. I'm weird that way.
I have a quick question, and this is nothing that I ever saw in an analysis or anything like that, but, you know, given the fact that we're wondering how much of this is real and how much of this is staged, I mean, Sidney Pollack says you weren't supposed to be there, but also maybe he was supposed to be there. Maybe this is Nick Nightingale's job. Maybe they do all of this for that one person that shows up uninvited. Like, this is just for their benefit. This is all just a show to freak out some weird normie that shows up. You know what I mean? Like, it's nothing that I really ever thought about while watching this, but this time I was like, is this all just a game and a setup? Just like every time they do this, they pick some other schmuck to do this to.
You know, you do have a good point there, because Bill is going through some problems with his marriage at the start. I mean, they're having sex with each other, but they're not having the type of sex that he wants. Even after the party at Ziegler's in the beginning, when they're having sex, she's not really looking at him. She's looking off to the side. She's not really fully into him as he is into her. So I'm thinking Nick Nightingale found out about this and teased at Bill the idea about this sex orgy, hoping that he would come and that he would have, you know, a one great experience there, because he has many opportunities at that party to have sex, but he doesn't. He's afraid to. And they basically have to confront him and bring him into this room and ask him about the whole idea with the password. Like, what's the password? He says, Vidalia. That's correct, but that is just the password for admittance. Right. What is the password of the house? And right there, I would have been like, there is no password of the house. This is no. But he's like, I just forgot it. I'm so sorry. Like, that's
so great.
Because it doesn't matter if you remembered it or if you didn't have it at all. Yeah. You will kindly remove your mask. He does. And then they ask him to remove his clothes. And at that moment, I just would have been like, all right, let's do this. Yeah. Let's party.
You're all in at that point. What are you going to do? Yeah. You're surrounded by a bunch of masked weirdos who aren't wearing clothes, half of them. Yeah. You have to go all in at that point. But also, there's so many parallels in this movie when he and Nicole Kidman go into the party and they just, like, all of these people feel the same. Like when he's talking to Sidney Pollack, like it's just an older version of him. Like that's what he's probably going to become. And it makes me wonder, is this a weird initiation thing? Like everyone that's at that mass party, did they first have to do the Tom Cruise thing? Is this just a hazing or something for new recruits, you know?
That could very well be. In fact, I think all the people who were at Ziegler's party were most likely at the orgy later on.
No doubt. There's so many parallels between those two parties.
Oh, and almost in a way, too, when watching the scenes at the Christmas party, it reminded me of the big ballroom sequence in The Shining.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I kind of found connections from that film with this one. Very small ones, but for me, they were there nonetheless. So after... Now... How the hell does he manage to just leave? Because they don't really show after the orgy, he just comes back. And
they're not, for as creepy as this all is, I don't think they're not going to commit acts of violence on this guy. It's kind of like, if this isn't hazing or whatever, it's kind of a, who's going to believe this guy? Like, nobody's going to believe you. Like, just... Bye. Great. You stumbled into something. We called you out. We caught you. Isn't this weird? Go home. Who are you going to tell?
Yeah. It's like I talked to a few guys on the podcast that have owned a swingers club, and they've had events like this.
Okay.
Maybe not in such a rich place.
Sure.
But there have been swingers clubs, and people do host parties like this. It's not too uncommon. And I think this, in a way, is Bill is supposed to be like our audience avatar, and he's showing us a lifestyle that we're not used to. And in his mind, it's very creepy and ominous. But the whole thing about the woman that says, "Take me, I'm ready to redeem him. You know, I'll be a sacrifice." That's something that they just play at all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not a new thing to them. But now they got this newbie here, this vanilla type guy. They're going to go, let's have some fun with this. We'll make him to be our sacrifice, and maybe we can get him to join the club, because Bill is a very successful doctor, very rich, lives in like very rich Manhattan apartments.
Gorgeous apartment. That, boy.
It's incredible.
I have friends that live in Manhattan. I mean, you can sit on their couch and you can reach in the bathroom and touch the toilet, and you can touch the stove. You don't even have to get off the couch. So this place is amazing.
Yeah. Very, very cool thing there. I always imagine that they're trying to initiate him in this type of like lifestyle.
I do like to think of it that way. Like, it seems so much less menacing if you really do just think about this as some frat guy bullshit that they're pulling on him.
Yeah. But ultimately, maybe they are doing all this stuff to get him back to his wife. Because I always thought of this movie as being a very uplifting story about love and communication and relationships, because they wanted him to go through all these events to have something to tell his wife. So maybe he's had his own experiences of this, and he has something to maybe relate to his wife on. It's like Chase and Amy when Ben Affleck,
but a lot better.
Yes, but that's right.
I'm just kidding.
Ben Affleck is upset because his girlfriend has done a whole bunch of things more sexually than he has. He wants to try to have the same thing happen by having a three-way with her and his best friend. And it backfires on him. And he realized that it doesn't really matter about a person's past or what they've done or what they haven't done. A person is with you because they just love you. It doesn't matter about their past or anything like that. It's just who you are now. And I think this movie shows that. And it's done in Christmas time, where it's a time about rebirth and regrowment, improvement. Kind of like how Ebenezer Scrooge changes in A Christmas Story. Bill Hartford changes his ideas about what he thinks love and relationships and sex and communication. In in this movie, both Bill and Alice can't really communicate with each other. They have to use like fantasy stories to communicate. And at the end, I think they have a more understanding with each other, and I believe they can grow, and their marriage will become that much more better.
Wow, you have such a more, I don't know, sunny outlook on this movie than I do. Because I don't think the intentions of these people are so dark and so evil. I mean, first of all, I don't see their relationship dissolving, but I do see their relationship probably going the same direction as Sidney Pollack and his wife. Like, they're going to stay together. He's bringing in the bucks. She is the dutiful wife. And I think that they're both at some point going to come to accept that that's what their relationship is. Because I also think Pollack sees, this young version of himself and is like, hey, I can help this kid along. I can give him, or I can mentor him, and I can sort of give him what I enjoy about my life. Because honestly, I don't think he doesn't care about their relationship at all. Like, he doesn't care about this prostitute. Like, he's pretty much cold to this, and I think he's kind of just slowly allowing Bill into his inner circle. This one time, okay, it didn't work. He isn't quite on board. But if we keep this up a little more and I talk to him a little more, soon he'll be into the inner fold with me and this Hungarian weirdo, and we can all sit around and drink scotch with a bunch of topless hookers. That's how I see it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. I just feel like that's probably where these two are going.
I like that very much. In fact, I almost imagine Bill Hartford to be a cuckold to Nicole Kidman, where she's going to bring home another guy and he's going to watch or maybe join in. I don't know. But I figured that may be going on in their marriage. But at least at the end, they're talking to each other. And I love that great line that she says. There's something very important. Oh, before that, he's like, but now we're together forever and ever. And she's like, don't say that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. Yeah, I think...
But I do love you, and there's something very important that we must do as soon as possible. And he says, what? And she says, fuck. And that's how the movie ends. And
an amazing ending for a movie that was shown in theaters to a mass audience. I love that last line. You can't really get away with that in almost any movie I would expect to see in the theaters. This one did it, and I think it's a fantastic and confusing way to end a movie, and it's a way to end a movie that will enrage people that have never seen a movie like this before.
Yeah, it's great too when they are in the toy shop, and the little girl holds up a giant teddy bear, and she's like, "I hope Santa leaves this under my tree for Christmas." And Nicole Kidman goes, "Well, you have to wait and see." The next picture that came out after Kubrick died was AI, artificial intelligence, that had the bear. So I don't know. Maybe that was a precursor to that movie. Maybe not.
Oh my God.
I don't know. But yeah.
The one thing about this movie that kind of bummed me out a little bit more than anything else, and this is nothing I used to see, but now I'm, like I said, I'm a man in my mid-40s. I have 3 children of my own. They're all girls. He ignores his daughter through this movie. Nicole Kidman kind of does as well, but every time that girl is on screen with Tom Cruise, he is not paying any attention to her. The one time where they're all in bed together, he's just watching Nicole Kidman read to this child or teach her to read. He's doting over this boy patient of his way more than his own daughter, and it was nothing I ever picked up on before, but I was like, man, are you just pissed that you have a daughter? Like, it was a really weird thing, and I'm sure that it has nothing to do with the movie at all, but it was something I noticed this time around that I never really focused on before.
Well, he has one interaction with his daughter when Alice is teaching her daughter math, and he comes by and talks to him, and he's like, I did it all, Daddy. Like, really? You got every one? Yeah, Dad, I did every one. And she goes, maybe we need a puppy for Christmas. Oh, funny girl.
Yeah.
Shut up. You did me watchdog. It's like, Tom Cruise, like, why are you in this movie? All right. I don't know why you're in this movie for, kid.
I don't really know why she's in the movie either. I'm like, I guess this is just to show that they're married and have some sort of connection. But yeah. No, I mean, and again, like, I really do. I feel that this is a phenomenal film. I like most of Kubrick's work. I am not a big fan of Dr. Strangelove at all. I think tonally, I don't think the humor works. I don't think the I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that movie. And it took me a while. It took me a while to get on board with Full Metal Jacket. As a kid, and for the longest time, I felt the way I think a lot of other people do, where I'm like, oh man, the first half of that movie is amazing. And then they go to Vietnam and it kind of sucks. I appreciate it much more now. This is the first movie of his that I saw, other than The Shining, that I was on board with the first time I saw it. And neither of those two movies has suffered over time. Like, I still think that those two are the best. Well, just for me. Like, I think 2001 is his best film. Mm-hmm. It's probably third as far as my favorite. It's like David Lynch. I number one in my book will always be Lost Highway. I understand that Mulholland Drive is probably his best film, but it's not my favorite.
That's a fair point there too. For me, my favorite Kubrick movie is a toss-up between this movie and A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah.
That because I saw A Clockwork Orange at a young age. You can check out our past episode at cinemarecall.net. But I saw Clockwork Orange at a young age where I'm not supposed to be watching this movie and was very horrified and impressed. It's a movie that made me feel bad for a person that I should not feel bad for at all during this movie.
Yeah.
It played with emotions very well. I thought it was very well filmed. And of course, The Shining. I've seen The Shining multiple times. I still love watching that movie. It's hard to say. I still think his best movie is probably 2001.
Yeah.
Like, that is his masterpiece. That is his one that he'll be known for throughout the years, which made sense because the way that the special effects were used in that were astounding.
Yeah. No, 100 years from now, I mean, I don't want to say nobody's going to be talking about Eyes Wide Shut, but it wouldn't shock me if this thing just falls away. But 2001 will never go away. I mean, people will be talking about that 100, 150 years from now, no doubt. That's the film of his that will survive the inevitable apocalypse.
But I think it is fascinating that this movie, Eyes Wide Shut, is his last movie. And it's a great send-off to a great director's career. And I'm glad he was able to make this, because as much as I love Full Metal Jacket, I don't want that to be the last movie that people know Stanley Kubrick for. Great movie.
Agreed.
It's got some great aspects to it, though. But I still think Eyes Wide Shut is a better movie. It's a movie that you can come back to each year. That's why I watch it every year at Christmas. I watch this and Batman Returns. And the cool thing about this version is that this is the uncut international version.
Yeah.
So when Bill goes to the orgy, you get to see all the hardcore action that happened, because in the theatrical release, the studios put in CGI characters to block a lot of the action.
Just CGI characters in black cloaks standing all over the place in perfect position.
It's all they're not moving, they're just standing still, and it's so awkward to watch because, especially at that time, CG was not impressive. So just black clothes featured. They could have just done like a black blob instead, like a black bar.
I do have to say, like, I don't know what is taking so long. I don't know what the rights issues are with this, but where is my big giant Criterion 4K Eyes Wide Shut with commentary and everything? Like, I don't understand what the issues are with this film. Why isn't there just an incredible definitive release out there?
Oh, It would be great to have a commentary track with
Sure.
Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, even after all these years, because they were married at the time they made this movie, and they got divorced so long after this. Now, many years have passed. They're both involved in their whole things right now. They're doing well. I think that they could come together as friends and just describe the making of this movie, and it would be amazing to listen to. So, Warner Brothers, if you're listening,
come on, just somebody bring in some film scholar. I don't care who it is. Give me a definitive. Give me an amazing package with a big 50-page booklet. Like that's really what I want from this film, and I think it's a shame that we don't have that. And I've never really had that. This thing's always just been kind of like released on bare bones DVD, and then a Blu-ray that doesn't honestly have that much.
I would love a 4K version of this movie. I do like the fact that this is the fully uncut version, which I like. Sure. And they do feature a lot of interviews. They had an interview with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and even Steven Spielberg.
Oh, all right. Okay, that's really cool. So wait, are these interviews at the time, or are these interviews for the release of the
these are interviews Blu-ray? Kind of like at the time of the movie. This is just before Steven Spielberg was starting to make AI artificial intelligence, because he was communicating back and forth with Stanley Kubrick about that movie. And then after he died, Spielberg went to honor his best friend's wishes and make AI artificial intelligence. And that is a movie that I could do a whole another episode on.
That's
AI
something that
intelligence.
That's a movie I feel like I should revisit, because I feel like I saw it in the theaters, haven't seen it since then.
Okay.
I didn't hate it, but I was underwhelmed by what I saw in the theater. And boy, that movie got shit on like crazy when it first came out. But I've heard a lot of people reappraise it, so I feel like it's due for a rewatch for me.
It is due for a rewatch, especially when you learn that the ending that was filmed. I thought when I watched in theaters, the ending that was made was just tacked on by Spielberg to make it more hopeful. And that's not what Kubrick wanted. That's not true. The ending that's in the movie, that's the ending that Kubrick wanted.
Okay. Oh, okay. That was interesting.
In his draft and screenplay. So watching it again and knowing that this actually was Kubrick's version, and all Spielberg did was try to encapsulate that. And AI features a lot of great traction shots and shots that Kubrick would do, but it's filmed by Spielberg, which is different and odd because Kubrick and Spielberg are not two matches. But originally, Kubrick wanted to produce the movie and have Spielberg direct it. He thought he would match his version of that even more. Kind of like the whole thing like Poltergeist. Poltergeist is a movie that Spielberg wrote, but Toby Hooper directed it, and the whole controversy with that.
You get so many people just bent out of shape on either end. I'm like, okay, can we just enjoy it? Like, do we have to fight over whose film this is? It's fantastic. Come on, give them both credit. Why not?
Yeah, at the same time, it doesn't fucking matter. All right, but
anyway, that's a conversation for a different time.
That's true. But closing out Eyes Wide Shut, I'll ask you to give your story of Eyes Wide Shut, and then tell us your favorite moments from this movie.
So, are we? Is it a letterbox 1 through 5? Is it a 1 through 10?
I do 1 through 5, but my co-host does 1 through 10. So it's up to the guest.
I don't think it matters. It's a 5 or a 10, whatever you want. I really do feel that this is an amazing film that far too many people have either avoided because they heard bad things about it at the time, or I know people that flat out just, and I get it to a certain degree, just hate Tom Cruise and won't watch anything with him in it. But boy, do yourself a favor and watch this film. It can be challenging. You don't have to have had taken any sort of film courses in college to get it. But I think that this is a film that isn't talked about as much as it should be, especially just in the corners of Stanley Kubrick discussion. But this is, boy, I hate to use perfect film. And I have a certain film type that I love. Mulholland Drive, Persona. There's a type of film that I love. They all fit into that category. So maybe I'm biased, but I think this is a gorgeous film to look at. Even if this is just on in the background at a cool jazz bar, you don't need to hear anything said. It's still great to look at. I'm giving this top score all around.
I like that. Do you have a favorite moment?
My favorite moment of this is just the discussion they have that kicks off all the events in this. Just
Yes.
after she smokes that joint, everything's great. But also, and I've kind of said this already, I want to be at every party. I want to be in every interior. Even the prostitute's crummy apartment looks gorgeous. Like everything is decked out. There's I don't know if you noticed this, and I think this is when he's talking to her roommate. They're walking through the apartment. There's the tiniest bathtub I've ever seen, just filled with Christmas presents. Like the set design is incredible. Every corner is thought about. But no, that conversation they have that really gets things running, I love it. I could just sit down and watch that on YouTube and be satisfied.
I'm with you on that scene at the beginning with Alice and Bill. Nicole Kidman's dialogue and monologue she gives, the pacing of the words that she used, it hypnotizes me.
Yeah.
As many times I watch that movie and things going on, when she starts telling that story, you're in a trance. Yeah. And from then on, I'm just going full-blown into this movie that Bill Harvard does. Yeah. I'm with you, Doug. This is a 5 out of 5 Christmas orgies for me. It's just an amazing
I want all of your ratings now to be how many Christmas orgies out of 5 Christmas orgies is this movie?
Yes, fair enough. But yeah, I'm just gonna repeat everything that you just said. Yeah, visually stunning, and for a long movie, it never feels long. No. I watched the movie many times, and never once do I feel like the movie drags. No. Even though characters are talking slowly and everything's dreamlike, it puts you into that mind state. I know Kubrick has this way of making movies. In fact, Spielberg said this in the interview. He says Spielberg movies have this fail-safe notion. Once you start one, you can't turn it off halfway through. No, and I never have.
Listen, if there are certain films out there. I mean, it's Cries and Whispers, it's kind of a drag. It's a great movie. It's kind of tough to watch. If I'm going to put on a Tarkovsky, if I'm going to watch Mirror, I can't watch that all the way through. Maybe my attention span's bad, but this thing, no, it never drags. You're kind of always waiting for the next scene because at a certain point, everything becomes more bonkers than the last scene and interaction we just saw. So yeah, it keeps you going, it keeps you interested. Don't let that runtime turn you off if you're on the fence.
100% there. Well, Doug, we are getting to the end of our episode here. Thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. Before we do go, Doug, please tell listeners once again where to find you and any new upcoming episodes you want to plug.
Sure. The podcast is Good Times, Great Movies. We can be found on all of the socials, and I think it's either Good Times, Great Movies, that's a lot to type, or GTGM Cast on certain things as well. Like I said, we're into Bo Derek Sember. It's a disaster. But I'm very excited. Coming up once the new year hits, we're going to be talking about Satisfaction with Julia Roberts and Justine Bateman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I had that on the list for the very first year of our show. I was like, we should do this. And it's not streaming anywhere. And the DVDs were $50, $60.
Oh,
so
gosh.
A wonderful show supporter sent me a copy that I'm going to watch and then send it to my co-host to watch so we can finally do this movie.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's be the most toughest thing about doing older movie podcasts is to find movies available, because you can't just watch your local video store and be like, I want this movie.
Right.
Especially now in this day and age. So that is commendable. Yeah. I wish the best of luck with that.
It's happened time time to time it's happened, like where we had to buy, and I'm not opposed to it, buy physical copies. We did Sweet Liberty, and we had to buy a physical copy. We did, oh man, what was it? What was the Savage, How I Got into College or something? The guy who did Better Off Dead and
One Crazy Summer.
One Crazy Summer. It was his third movie.
Oh, he did. Steve Salvage Holland did 3
yes,
movies?
He did 3. The other one is, I think it's called How I Got into College. And we had to buy that on DVD as well. So.
Oh gosh. I I'll look it up later on because I had no idea.
Yeah, check it out. I mean, it's not great, but it's something.
Oh man, I can't. I'm trying to look up his filmography right now, but I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, I believe it's called How I Got into College. I think that's the title.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, How I Got into College. That's it. 1989. Okay.
Yep.
I will look that up later there.
All right.
But again, thank you for being on the show. Thank you everyone for listening. Before we go, I do this every episode. I gotta give a shout out to our amazing Patreon supporters. Without them, the show would not be here. So thank you very much to these individuals. Again, patreon.com/cinemarecallpod. And no special order, big thank you. And feel free to say anything after if you want to, Doug. Sure. Jason from Rabbit Hole Podcast. Jeanette Mickenham at AKA Jeanette. Matt and Ashley from Mashley at the Movies. Donnie Roberts, who rates the Deep Sea Anthologies, formerly of Cage's Kiss. Linda Castro of Bed Knobs and Broomflix. And we gotta thank our buddy Harvey Andrus, who doesn't have a podcast. He's just a friend. We love him. Thank you, Harvey. And lastly, Jen McQuaid of Shocked and Applaud. Again, thank you very much. If you want to be like these individuals and get a shout out and get access to episodes early and bonus video footage, head on over to patreon.com/CinemaRecallPod. I'll post links in our show notes. Big thank you to our guest here, Doug from Good Times, Great Movies. Thank you very much for being here, watching us, listening. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to say before we leave the show here, Doug?
No, I mean, Vern, I have to thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for, indulging my request to come on and talk about this film. If you're ever hard up for a guest, hit me up. More than happy to jump on again. And I will say, Bed Knobs and Broomflix, that's an amazing name. Like,
that's great?
That's pretty fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But all our Patreon members are really great. They got great shows. But anyways, folks, that's it right now. I don't know when we'll be back, but we'll hopefully be back, hopefully sooner than later. But anyways, folks, love you all, and I'll say goodbye there. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
All right, I'm stopping the recording.